Did we already wish Troy a happy birthday? Did I miss that part?
No.
Oh,
Happy
okay, just checking.
birthday.
Okay, you're good to go, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Today's April 6, 2021. I now call to order a workshop of the City of College Place City Council. Lisa, will you please take roll call and verify a quorum?
Will do. Councilmember Cleveland.
Present.
Councilmember Peterson.
Present.
Councilmember Selby.
Present. Sorry, forgot to unmute.
Councilmember Sherman.
Present.
I do not see Councilmember Bobbitt or Nyhagen, and Councilmember Trope did request to be excused. So, but we do have a quorum. We also have City Attorney Ree Colwell, City Administrator Rizzatello, Police Chief Troy Tamaris, Fire Chief David Winter, Finance Director Brian Carlton, Garrett, and I'm gonna mess up your last name, but Gronowski.
Wow, you nailed it. Great job.
Okay, with Bird, and we're ready to go.
Excellent, thank you. I think we're gonna pass on embarrassing Chief Tamara, so we're not gonna sing happy birthday today, y'all, sorry. All right, so we have several workshop items tonight and no action will be taken, it's all for information. And first we have Bird scooter sharing in College Place, and Mr. Rizzatello and Garrett of Bird will present that for us today.
Hey, thank you. I'll provide a little summary about this and then I'll turn you over to Garrett. So Bird has approached us about operating a scooter sharing service here in the City of College Place. They have offered this service in some neighboring communities, including Hermiston. Currently, I know they're also underway in getting operation going in Pendleton and then Walla Walla. So it's scooter sharing where essentially it's like a per mile fee and the base fee, and they would put scooters around the community that people could utilize, and it would be via an app. And they're just looking at getting permission to operate within the City of College Place. I brought this before a couple of advisory bodies. So basically our Park and Recreation Board, our Youth Advisory Commission, and then our Economic Development Commission all recommended to go ahead with this and to bring it to council hopefully for approval. So today Garrett is here presenting on this service. Garrett.
Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Mike. Yeah, so Bird, we would like to provide a fleet of electric scooters to be a micromobility service in College Place. We would be working with a local entrepreneur, a community member of College Place. This is an existing business owner who would really be the face of Bird scooters for us. Bird would still be taking care of all of the back end, so the app, the education, the technology, the customer service, but we would localize operations and have an individual in College Place running those ground operations. Really what those ground operations would look like is this individual would, one, be in charge of charging the scooters overnight. He would have a warehouse, a workshop where charging would be done behind closed doors. Two, he would be strategically placing these within the community in high demand areas. Again, we want to be an added value to your already existing transportation network, providing that micromobility service. Three, if any damages did occur throughout the day, this individual would be notified in real time and that bird would be removed off the map. He would pick it up, take it home, provide that repair. This individual would have a mechanic background. He would also be going through extensive training with the bird team. Three, he would also be proactively managing this fleet of bird scooters throughout the day. So one, he would be rebalancing. Rebalancing is just a fancy word for moving the bird scooters from low demand areas back to those high demand areas. Again, being a reliable source of transportation. 2, proactively managing and maintaining them, and 3, sanitizing for COVID protocols. Lastly, whenever the College Place decides to cut off operations, whether it's 9 or 10 p.m., this individual will then collect the bird scooters off the streets. They will not be available to ride or to rent throughout the night. He'll take them back to his warehouse, charge them back up, and then the following morning, Bird would resume operations. So what Bird is asking, like Michael said, is an MOU to run operations. That will give our internal team the green light to then kick off a campaign to find and source this local fleet manager, and 2, allocate vehicles to College Place. We'll start operations with a small fleet. First week or 2 weeks will be 25 scooters on the streets. Then we'll slowly grow that to 50. The city will be provided with a city dashboard where 1, city administration can see in real time where the bird scooters are located, 2, where the rides are starting, 3, where the rides are ending, and 4, what those trip details look like. So this will be a true partnership. The administration, the city, will have an account manager for any questions, concerns, words of wisdom to really tailor this program to College Place. Obviously, at our core, we are a data company. So the longer we run operations, the more trends we see, the better we become at running specifically in College Place. After that, we'll then see if utilization, supply and demand is calling for additional scooters. Right now, I believe we think that College Place can, at full capacity, house about 60 bird scooters. Please let me know if you have any additional questions on day-to-day operations, the local fleet manager or anything bird related.
Right, thank you. Mike, do you have anything you wanted to add before we go to council members?
Yeah, I would say that we had our city's risk management insurance carrier look at this. They were good. They just had some minor tweaks on the insurance. Since that point, we've worked with Bird, and that was included in the updated MOU from a while back. And yeah, beyond that, looks good from our end. I will say that the university, they were notified of this as well, and they seemed open to it. And then our advisory commissions are in support of this.
All right, thank you. So let's go through council members for any questions or comments. And we're gonna, oh, Chief Tamaris, he has something he wanted to add.
Well, actually, I had a question, if that's okay, Mayor.
Oh, yes, please go.
Garrett, I'm just curious what the what types of calls of service the police department would be expecting with your business model here for the city of College Place. How often do these get stolen? Just kind of curious what that might look like.
Yeah, absolutely. All bird scooters will have a bird brain GPS. So at all times, we'll be able to locate these bird scooters. If you're not unlocking and renting the bird scooters, they are utterly useless. You should have a relationship with 1, the bird account manager, and 2, that local entrepreneurial local point of contact. But we do not see the administration, the police department, having really any financial or operational burden when running bird operations. Of course, if a bird scooter does go missing, we do have an SOP on what is done to retrieve that bird scooter. We would love to have you looped in to that conversation, but the operational pull of the police department should not be a heavy lift at all.
And would the GPS locate be provided to us without a warrant, or is that something that you would require?
That will be provided to all administration who has access to that city dashboard.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, we're going to start with council. Well, I do see that Councilmember Bobbitt and Councilwoman Nyhagen have joined us.
Yes, thank you.
So welcome. We're going around and we're going to ask questions on our first topic, and then we'll go, well, if you have any questions, we'll kind of loop back with you. So we're going to start with Mr. Cleveland.
No questions at this time.
Okay, Mr. Peterson?
What's that?
No, I was just, I think Mike asked the ones or answered the one question I had. That was as far as liability, as far as personal injury, I guess, and whatnot. These, other than that, looks pretty exciting. I guess one thought, what are the travel patterns that we're thinking? You know, this City College place is kind of two, we've got kind of a commercial area and then we have the college. What are the thoughts there? Is it, these will mainly be in College Place Center, or where would the position be where these would be available?
Yeah, I would imagine initially they'll be available along the College Avenue corridor, the educational area around the university campus, on our rights of way, and then I would imagine also the Meadowbrook area as well, since that's where a lot of our commerce is at. And then I would probably venture to say, based on the success of that, maybe a little bit of the Myra Road corridor, so over like where Home Depot and Human Being are at, because City of Walla Walla is going through a very similar process as us. And I know this passed City of Pendleton this week, so I would only venture to think that Walla Walla will allow this soon as well. So I think eventually there'll be a lot of going back and forth between the two cities.
Yeah, and at first we'll lean heavily on the city on where the scooter should be placed. Obviously, initially, that's where the high demand areas will be. During the ride, then we are a dockless, free-flowing model. The user can then take them. At our core, again, we are a data company, so we will let the data do the talking so that we can kind of see where supply and demand takes us, and then strategically plan from there.
Thank you.
Councilmember Selby?
I have two questions. First, are these typically ridden on the road or on the sidewalk?
You should, in your eyes, look at the bird scooter as a bicycle. We govern the speed at 15 miles per hour because that's the average speed of a commuter on a bicycle. They go where bicycles go. So when necessary, you want to stay off of the sidewalk when operating the bird scooter. So stay into bike lanes to the farthest right of the road. They will be parked on sidewalks, but out of the pedestrian right of way. So an extension of the bike racks next to signs and poles out of the pedestrian right of way and kind of that furniture loading zone, but they are ridden where bicycles would go.
Thank you. And my second question, there was discussion of, Walla Walla maybe doing this as well. And how do you prevent the scooters from going outside of the service area? Because we had troubles with our university bikes being ridden to downtown Walla Walla. And I can foresee people trying to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to kind of that bird brain, we can communicate with the scooter in real time. So the City of College Place would be an operating zone. So the City of College Place city limits would be the operating zone. And if a scooter was approaching that, the scooter would beep. They would get a notification that they're exiting the zone and the scooter would turn off. At the end of the day, of course, it is a two-wheeled scooter, so they could pedal it off. We don't lock the wheels due to safety concerns, but the motor would turn off and the scooter would be utterly useless. So the scooters only operate and work within the municipality that we are operating in that operating zone.
Does it have to be municipality boundaries? Because it seems like if we look at commercial, it might be helpful to allow people to go like on the other side of Myra Road, but not further than that.
Yeah, I know
Myra
Michael
Road
has kind
boundary.
of talked to his counterpart in Walla Walla. We don't want to go into Walla Walla if we don't have the okay from Walla Walla. So
Fair.
we are treating each municipality as a separate operating zone at this time. As Michael said, we are in similar conversations with Walla Walla right now.
Are there any further questions, Melanie? Melody?
No, thank you.
Okay. Okay, moving on. Councilmember Sherman?
Thank you. So if you sign something like this with the city of Walla Walla, does that then mean that people can go between College Place and Walla Walla? And then, Mike, didn't we do something? We had a conversation like this a while ago about bikes, but that never went anywhere. Like, is this,
Yeah.
how is that related?
So, yeah, I can add a little bit to that. So about 3 years ago, there was an agreement that we hammered out with Lime Bike to do a bike sharing service here. The big issue at the time with that was, in order to make the numbers work, Lime Bike needed City of Walla Walla to allow their operations at the same time. And to be frank, it got subcommitteed to death over in City of Walla Walla. And then Lime Bike just lost interest and stopped even looking at this area. That was one of my questions to Bird. Like, let's say, play devil's advocate, we move ahead and then City of Walla Walla drags their feet because we still have the service here. And Garrett said that yes, we could. So with this can actually be something regardless where I would say we're like in control of it. Whereas with Lime Bike, we were hoping that they were going to speed up their process, but that never happened.
Yeah, and regarding the multi-operational zone, so if Walla Walla was to move forward, you could go from College Place to Walla Walla. And of course, Bird pioneered this electric scooter micromobility space about 3.5, 4 years ago. Since that time, a lot of the bike companies have converted over to electric scooters just because of the adoption and utilization rates of electric scooters compared to the bikes.
That makes sense. So would the same thing happen if someone isn't riding it, but like has ridden it, gets on the bus, and now is taking a bus into Walla Walla? They're going to get those same notifications that they're out of a service area. And then when they get off the bus, then it's just a kicking scooter at that point, correct?
Correct. So if they would pull up the Bird app when they were not in College Place, they would see no birds available and that they were outside of the operating zone.
Yeah, I'm meaning like they originated in College Place and then take a bus, put it on the bus and take it to Walla Walla. Right?
Of course, that comes down to rider education. We don't want these going on public transit at all. As soon as a rider signs up, they go through multiple tutorials, walking them through really what the rules and regulations are in College Place when on a Bird scooter, and really what the scooter etiquette is. But if they were to take it on the public transit, the Bird scooter would not work again. We would still have that GPS. We'd be able to locate it and bring it back to the operating zone.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Bobbitt or Nyhagen, did you have a chance to review the documents, and do you have any questions or comments?
I just had a question on the cost.
So there's no financial burden on the city of College Place for the users. It's $1 to unlock the Bird scooter and 30 cents per minute to rent and to ride the Bird scooter.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I've experienced them, I believe it was in Milwaukee when I was on a trip with Pathfinder. So it's kind of interesting because it seemed like they rode them both on the road and on the sidewalk.
Yeah, obviously operations have come a long way in our rider education. We've put a lot of resources into making sure that all riders are fully aware of what the rules and regulations are from municipality to municipality. Each city is obviously different, and we tailor to really what the municipality and administration wants to see within their city.
Now, where would the main hub be? At City Hall or somewhere near the university campus?
That they would work with us on establishing that. And I would say through the discussions from our advisory boards, the main topics that came up were around the university, the northern part of College Avenue, like around Rogers Bakery, the area down by Andy's Market, and then Meadowbrook area over by like Walmart, the Meadowbrook Plaza area. So I think those would be good initial areas to start this out at.
Yeah, I can see some of the older community members struggling, but I can
Yes.
also see some of the older community members being told to slow down.
Thank you, thank you. I'm an older member.
Probably one we'd have to tell to slow down.
Garrett, I have a question. Most of the marketing shows people riding it with helmets. Are helmets provided?
So Washington State does not mandate helmets on e-scooters. Helmets are available in-app for all riders for free. All the rider has to do is pay for shipping and handling, which I believe is $4.99. So helmets are available for use, but of course not a state law, so we cannot mandate them.
Sure.
We also do provide programs as if you, before you start your ride, you are wearing a helmet, you can take a selfie and you could actually get a discount for that. So we promote safe helmet riding, but obviously do not mandate it.
And then I have one more technical question. So you, I rent it on my app.
Yep.
And let's say I only have $5 in my checking account or whatever's linked to my app. What if I rack up $10 worth of minutes? How does that going to work for the citizen?
Yeah, so you have your account. You can prepay to have a outstanding balance within your account, but you do have a debit card or credit card linked to your account. Of course, we will pull for that. Even if you do overdraft, as you are saying, you'll be able to complete your ride, and then the Bird internal team will then reach out to recover those funds.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Does any other council member Cleveland?
I was kind of curious about the locations at which they start out. Like is there some kind of structure that they're locked to that unlocks? Are these, or are they essentially sitting out like at the edge of the parking lot? I'm just kind of curious where they're like drop-off locations, how they're set up, and if they're like secured there.
Yeah, great question. We are a dockless model, so there's no additional infrastructure that's needed in College Place for us to run operations. So those initial parking spots, we call them nest locations. There's a lot of bird puns when you work with us, but they are virtual parking areas. So in app, you'll be able to see those parking areas. They either have like a preferred parking P, like you would see on a parking garage. There's an address, a picture of what it would look like when you arrive, but all of the parking areas are virtual. Cities do put in some signage as well if needed. So either sidewalk paint just to give a visual on where they should be parked, or even signs saying e-scooter bird parking. But there's no additional infrastructure needed. So there's no like actual docks that you lock to. It is a dockless free-flowing model.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Councilmember Sherman? And then we'll go to Councilmember Bobbitt.
Where is the closest other bird? That's a weird question. But where else are you located?
So we're in 150 markets worldwide. We started this fleet manager model at the end of 2020. So in Washington State, we're in conversations with a lot of them. We are a seasonal business though. So here comes your second bird pun. During those winter months, we hibernate. So we pull off operations out of the roads. So you'll start seeing a lot of the similar model in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest as we move in April, May, and June. I can definitely send over some similar sized cities that we have launched and are live. But this model where we're able to provide micromobility into these smaller to mid-sized markets is newer. So regarding similar sized cities by you, I will have to go back to our database and pull some of those.
I will say, looking at the local paper, the one that's operational right now is Hermiston, Oregon.
Wow, that's pretty cool. Thank you.
Councilmember Bobbitt?
Since we missed the first part of the presentation, how are these kept charged and who maintains them?
We will be working with a local entrepreneur, an existing business owner who will really be the face of Bird Scooters. So in the eyes of the community, this individual will be running operations for Bird. He'll be supported by Bird's internal team. But this individual will be a community member in College Place. He or she resides in College Place, and they will be responsible for one, charging the Bird scooters overnight. It is done behind closed doors in a warehouse, a workshop, maintaining them throughout the day, strategically placing them throughout the city, and then collecting them at night and charging them again.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, Garrett, I do have another question. So coming from a city that has had bikes, this person whose job it's going to be, I don't know, is it going to be their full-time job or is it going to be a side job? And the reason I'm asking is, what's going to happen if I find a scooter thrown in my shrubs?
Right. During peak months, it is a full-time job. Obviously, we are a seasonal business. So being in the Pacific Northwest, this individual will probably have another business venture, whether it's a snow plowing business or something that has a peak seasonal business in the winter as well. Or this individual is an entrepreneur and has multiple businesses where they'll actually hire labor as well to help run operations. Regarding a business, a scooter thrown in your shrubs, one, you can report any inappropriate or appropriate behavior in-app. We have what is called community mode. So anyone in College Place, even if you're not a user of Bird, you can download the Bird app. And if you do see a misplaced bird, all you have to do is take a picture of it. That will notify us. We use our technology and GPS to then see where that bird scooter is. That local point of contact will be notified. Of course, we do hope that the person who sees it is a good Samaritan as well and moves it and strategically places it where it should be. A lot of the time, it also gets rented in and rowed again before that fleet manager is able to get to that location and move it and park it correctly. But that local point of contact will be notified if there is any inappropriate behavior or bad parking.
Okay, so they're just expected to go pick it up as soon as they get notified.
Correct.
Okay, and how heavy are these scooters? Because we have a lot of senior citizens and I can't imagine them picking them up. And like I said, coming from a city, I did see lots of bikes in shrubs and, you know, in the weirdest places. It was quite sad, but I just want to know, you know, I don't want a blight on the city. That's my biggest concern.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, it is easier to manage a smaller fleet. So in those large metropolitan cities, we had hundreds, if not thousands of Bird scooters. In College Place, we'll have anywhere from 25 to, let's call it 75 Bird scooters. So being able to manage a smaller fleet is much, much easier. The Bird weight is around 30 pounds. It is, of course, they are wheeled as well. So it is easy to kind of wheel it over. If it is locked, you'll get a beeping sound, but you'll still be able to kind of wheel it over into the appropriate area.
Okay, and I assume the information for the app is painted or a sticker on the scooter itself so people can easily find the information?
Yep, we have a local number and of course the Bird app website as well on every individual scooter. And then again, the administration of College Place will have that account manager who's your point of contact to reach out, but every scooter does have a number to reach out. You can either call or text that number.
Okay, thank you. All right, before we let him go, was there any other questions or comments? Councilmember Sherman?
How many birds would we get?
We would start with the individual, that local fleet manager. He would have 60 in his fleet. For that first week or two, he released about 25, grow that to 50 scooters, and then we would kind of let the data do the talking and utilization to see how many additional scooters we would need to meet the demand in the city.
Awesome, thank you.
Is it high?
All right, any other questions?
Councilwoman Nyhagan,
Yes, please.
does one have to pay an extra fee for insurance in case there's an accident?
They do not, no.
So we would be responsible for that?
So in the rider agreement, there is a liability clause that you are signing off on. On the city side of things, as Michael outlined, we will indemnify the city of College Place, so transfer of liability from College Place over to Bird. But all of that is outlined in the rider agreement that you'll be signing up for when you create your account.
Yeah, we're indemnified in the MOU, so we're good.
And we don't own the scooters, so it's not our responsibility to maintain them in any way.
Correct.
Okay, any other questions or comments?
Thank you.
All right, Garrett, looks like we're done giving you the spotlight on you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for the time, council. Please let me know if there's any additional questions or concerns, and looking forward to working with you.
Great, thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to move on to the American Rescue Plan, and Mr. Rizzatello will present.
Okay, thank you. I just included some information on what's in this plan that's like heading our way. It's slowly trickling out through the county, and then it should go to Blue Mountain Action Council. There'll be additional monies for utility and rental assistance. If you go to the fact sheet document, that has like a cleaner bullet point list of just like everything that's like in it. So it helps pay for the vaccinations. There'll be SNAP EBT benefits. And then there'll also be rental and utility relief. That'll go through BMAC, and then there'll also be some small business assistance, including targeted live venue grants, and then restaurant grants that go through the Small Business Administration and the federal level. The key difference with this act and the previous ones is this is the first time that cities and counties actually are going to receive assistance money. The rules and regulations around this are still being authored, but from everything that's been communicated, as long as you can demonstrate a very weak case regarding COVID. So for instance, saying, hey, we had a revenue gap covering X, Y, and Z because of COVID, or something like that, you could essentially use this money for projects or to cover revenue deficiencies. So they have so there's an allocation document that has essentially gone out. That is that updated chart document, which is the last one, but you'll see where the estimates are on what each city is designated to get. And in College Place, we're designated to get just north of $2 million in assistance. We have yet to get the contract for this money yet. The money does not have to be fully utilized immediately. You do have up to like 2024 to spend it. But I just wanted to make sure you're aware of this. So there are key things that I have staff looking into, where once we get this contract, we'll present a menu of options to council to essentially go through and figure out what to spend the money on. There's a lot of deferred stuff that's on our equipment list, capital list, that this money could help with. The secondary thing that's going on is there is an infrastructure bill that is supposed to pass federal Congress this summer. That resolution you all passed last council meeting, that has been sent on to Senators Murray and Cantwell, and then also Representative McMorris Rogers. I'm having a call with Representative McMorris Rogers' staff this week because they do have they've demonstrated deep interest in that state mandated wastewater treatment plant upgrade project. So I'm trying to see what we can do to get that some federal money to help with that project. But I just want to make sure you were aware of this because this is all fast moving and the data is always changing on this, but that is good news, though, that as far as the local government earmark out of this rescue plan, we're supposed to get $2 million. That's great.
That is great. Okay, let's go through council members for any questions or comments, and we'll start with Mr. Bobbitt.
No questions at this time. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
Mr. Cleveland,
No questions.
Mr. Peterson.
Yeah, quick question. Mike, it's interesting. Was there, and we don't, well, what I observed on that fee schedule is there must be a minimum base amount, because it was interesting how cities that are 7, 8, 9, 10 times larger than us were not at that ratio of an additional funding amount.
Yeah. Well, we ended up getting some additional funding because the formula, part of it was based on if you got any money previously, and there are a number of what's called entitlement jurisdictions. So if you get a direct allocation of community development block grant, this wouldn't be your first time at the rodeo. So City of Walla Walla actually received direct assistance from the federal government in each of the last bills, the CARES bill, the CARES bill 2. They've received quite a bit of assistance, and this is more on top of it. Other things that factor into this formula is your median income, if you're entitlement or not, square mileage, and then also if you're a full service cities or if some of your services are contracted out to either county or other providers. So it's a pretty complex formula, but that's why there's very strange deviations in the numbers.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Councilmember Nyhagen,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Selby,
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Sherman.
No questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much. Mike, we're going to go ahead and move on. Thanks for that presentation. And you are still up with the fireworks regulation.
Yeah, so as you all directed me to do a couple of council meetings back, we did survey the community. This was advertised on the reader board in front of City Hall. I mentioned it in some of the utility newsletter articles, and then it was also on our social media. So Facebook, Nextdoor, Twitter, and then on the newsfeed section of our city webpage. So we end up getting over 160 responses, which when you look at the response rate for a lot of our other surveys having to do with budget and strategic plan, it's actually par for the course of our normal rate. So as you can see here, a couple of key points. So if you go to page 3, which has to do with, do you just want to ban the use of fireworks in College Place? The majority of people in the community have said no. That's at 67.47% of the respondents. And then yes was 28%. Now where the data gets muddy is some of the more refined questions, such as, do you want the rules to remain the same, like being able to light fireworks a week of the 4th and New Year's? As you can see, it's almost a 50-50 split, which is pretty interesting. Question 2 is an amendment to only allow fireworks on the day of July 4th, so 9 a.m. to midnight, like City of Walla Walla. And again, you see a split of almost 50-50. If you look at the breakout of respondents, there's a fairly even split among the age groups, so that is interesting. And then really the same with the neighborhoods. When you go to page 5, you'll see some of the higher ones are College Place number 2, which is the older part of the town, between 4th and 12th in College, and the Scenic View Hill, Whitman PUD over by Kiwanis Park, Homestead subdivision out by Martin Airfield are higher response areas. So we did get responses from a lot of the neighborhoods throughout College Place. But this is the data from that survey. It was put out. We had this out in the community for about a month to try to get the responses that we could. So that's what's before you.
All right, thank you. I have to chuckle at it because I don't know it really helped us any since everybody's 50-50. All right, so let's start with Councilmember Bobbitt for any questions or comments.
Oh, that was a pretty interesting report, but no questions right now. Thanks, Mike.
Councilmember Cleveland.
I'm observing that 50 to 75% of people like fireworks and the rest don't. But I don't know, the thing that stands out to me was something that Chief Tamaris had said at one of the last times we discussed this, which is if we ban it or restrict it, people will tend to do it anyway and just hide it, which makes, or no, I'm sorry, it must have been Chief Winter, not Troy, but said that when it's restricted, a lot of times people will still get them and do them, and it just increases risks. And given the split, I guess my leanings are to kind of let things be more or less the same, unless there's, you know, some, yeah, I don't know, just that's kind of my inclination, I guess.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's good input there, Mike. It's we can always assume things are happening based on who talked to us last and whatnot. But one question I have, and I think I brought it up at the council meeting or whatever it was before when we talked about this. How tight are our regulations on looking at what is being sold and how that has changed? I know over the last maybe 10 years, let's say, there were safe and sane fireworks, and it could just be I'm getting and something else is going on. But it really seemed like this year and perhaps last year, there were more aerial projections, they were louder, they were more intense. Now, that could be just my imagination, but do we actively look at these stands and see that they are selling what it has been approved?
Chief Winter, would you want to respond to that?
So all fireworks stands have to receive a permit from the city, which our fire marshal issues. And part of that issuing process is all fireworks stands have to be inspected, and then they are spot inspected once they're up and running. We make sure that we provide them with literature to hand out to all the customers, make sure they are handing it out to the right age bracket. You have to be 16 or older in order to buy fireworks. As far as the products, the regulations on the products have not changed. I think people spend a huge amount on fireworks in our community. And I think some of that, and I'm not pointing fingers to anybody who might be a city administrator or not, it really enjoy fireworks, but I am sure that he and all of our community are buying only the fireworks that are sold in our county. I'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
Well, I guess my question, I guess my question was, you know, a few years ago, you could have some things that flew up in the air, but you really couldn't. You couldn't buy firecrackers, but now we have fireworks that has multiple projections into the air, and they appear to be much louder. Is that not?
So if they're sold in our county, they're legal to shoot in our county. If they're sold in our city, they're legal to shoot in our city. The city of Walla Walla only does safe and sane, but I don't think there are any fireworks stands in city limits because everybody goes out into the county or into College Place to buy them. I think some of what you are describing sounds like something that might come from outside of the county, maybe an Indian reservation, Oregon, something like that, which is not regulated. But there is a huge contingency of the state fire marshal's office, which falls underneath the state the state patrol that regulates fireworks and the fireworks sales, and they do inspections of all that comes into the state. I'm sure every once in a while they do find stuff that shouldn't. I know a few years ago there was a person in the county making their own fireworks. It didn't end well when he burned his own place down. But as far as what is sold around here, it should be what's legal.
Good, thanks.
Yep, I agree with you, Councilmember Peterson. They just seem to be much louder and shook my windows more than ever. All right, so we're going to go on to Ms. Nyhagen.
No questions, but I'm not a fireworks person. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Selby.
Well, my son actually has come, I think, twice before the city council to say, please keep them legal and make them bigger. So, you know, I don't have a lot of room to talk, but I take two things really away from this. One is that a majority are okay with keeping the fireworks at some level. They're split on exactly how much that should be, but they're okay with keeping fireworks at some level. And the other thing is just how much individuals really can influence government policy if they take the time to give us input.
Absolutely. And that's even why it came to the table in the first place, because we had a few people send us some emails or some phone calls after the last 4th of July. So, yeah.
I have a whole rant for my students and other random people I meet about how you make a difference when you become involved in government. But I will spare that because you're all involved.
I know, I was thinking when I saw that number, it's like, I know there's more than 160 pet owners in the city.
Yes.
They're the ones that are opposed to, because it scares the animals, but if they didn't participate, there's only so much we could do. Okay, and Councilmember Sherman.
Well, I guess my question is probably for David. Do you still feel the same way that you did 6 years ago, presenting this and saying that it is a little bit, I don't know, less runaway-y when they're legal here? Or like, what are you seeing? What makes it, is it easier for us to keep things as they are so that people are allowed to do things within reason and obviously have, I don't know, what are your thoughts?
So I like using the analogy of, if you buy cookies for your household and then tell your young children, these cookies sitting on the counter, I don't want you to eat any of them, the chances are they're going to sneak in and eat them no matter what you told them. If you told them not to eat them, they're now going to eat them in their bedroom, and now you have ants. I think fireworks, people are going to express themselves with fireworks no matter what I tell them. I can look at the city of Walla Walla and watch their fireworks show, and they're shooting off lots and lots of fireworks in their community that are not legal in their community. Most years, not this last year, but most years they have a tremendous enforcement problem, and they have way more fires than we do usually, because someone takes it into their backyard, lights it on fire, lights their backyard on fire, and then runs because they know they're going to get a ticket. My experience has been, most times when a fire does occur, the person who did it tries to put it out and reports it. That leaves this fire smaller. They're not running away because I'm not going to get them in trouble. I don't want to put them in fireworks jail. I want them to have a good time with their family. For most people, the reason they're shooting fireworks is to celebrate with their family and family time. This last year with COVID, it was nuts, for lots of reasons. And I think that might still trickle into this July. It may still be just as loud. I think we as a community have lots of opportunities to lessen that issue. by getting ahead of it with good education, public radio announcements. I recommended last time maybe we get window stickers for cars that, hey, I support College Place's Freedom Fest by being a contributor to that. The amount of money I would have put maybe towards fireworks, put it to a larger show, get more, this is going to sound corny, bang for your buck. But maybe that's one way of reducing the amount of users lighting stuff off.
That makes sense. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, before we move on, are there any other questions or comments? All right, I think we're done with this topic then. Okay, now we're going to move on to the emergency moratorium of manufactured housing. And Ms. Colwell's going to give us an overview of this.
I am. I'm pitch hitting for John, which I didn't know I was going to do. So Norma and Mike, speak up if I get anything wrong. My understanding is it came to the city's attention through Norma that our most recent comprehensive plan update, we eliminated the zone for just manufacturing homes. And that changed to, let me look at my notes here. That changed to multifamily residential. And so what can happen now in our manufactured home parks, for lack of a better identifying term, is that property can either be developed, multifamily residential, or it can be sold and then developed. And the concern is that the housing and the cost of housing currently is considered affordable. Manufactured homes are normally less expensive, that some of our affordable housing that we can offer our community is going to disappear. So that's the concern. And the RCWs allow a city to put a moratorium on imposing that zoning, that new zoning code, in order to take a look at the implications of the change in the zoning. I don't think that was anticipated when we updated our zoning code. And also, I think in your packet is the local community council, the Affordable Housing Implementation Task Force, which has a lot of good information about what a city can be concerned about when it comes to manufactured homes. And so at this point, we're putting it before the council to see if you guys would like us to pursue going down this avenue of a moratorium.
And I would just like provide a little history on like why that was in the comprehensive plan update. So way back when we collapsed some of the zoning, and what we essentially did in that multifamily zoning is we allowed manufactured home parks as an allowable use there. Reason being is that we were actually trying to make it easier to establish manufactured housing parks. So that was the reason that we deviated away from having its own zoning and having it within the multifamily zoning, because there were folks who were looking at manufactured housing parks, but they only saw we had 2 parks in question. They're like, well, isn't there an easier way to do that? So that was the concept at the time about essentially having that as an allowable use in that in the multifamily residential housing. The issue is that I would say since the time of the comprehensive plan update and development code update, our housing market has still gotten a really hot, really tight market where homes are selling very quickly. And while we were trying to make it easier for manufactured housing parks to be established, there's a fear by some residents in one of our manufactured housing parks that in fact the unintended consequence could be developed to some other use. for multifamily housing. So I mean, Community Council, they did an affordable housing study. One of their recommendations was to have the specific manufactured housing zone only. Upon some of the communications we received from residents in this one manufactured home park, we viewed it as prudent to put it before this body to see if we did want to put a moratorium as it pertains to essentially getting rid of that manufactured housing zoning while we work through this and essentially bring it back in this case. Now we would, the idea is that we would still allow manufactured housing as an allowable use in that multifamily zoning, but more of like a peace of mind for the residents, maybe bring it back that manufactured home zoning only for those two parks. We haven't really received intelligence from any developer community or things like that anything's going to happen to those parks, but it's just an unintended consequence of what happened with how hot the real estate market is here, is that it could. So doing the moratorium would be very similar to like when we did the 1-year temporary moratorium on the industrial hemp, while Planning Commission worked through that process of whether or not to allow it, and then they made their decision, and then you upheld that and put that into place. So very similar process of what we're looking at. So we're putting for you today. Basically, if you all think that is a good idea to do the temporary moratorium, and if so, then Ree and John will work on getting that before you, and we will get that cooking.
And this doesn't, won't necessarily result in a change to our zoning code, but it freezes it so that the council can determine whether they want to change it or not. It also won't prohibit any tenant from being evicted or the rent being raised, but it would make it much less desirable, I think, to sell or develop until we can accommodate for affordable housing. Any questions?
Right,
Comment?
let's start to our council members. We'll start with Councilmember Bobbitt.
I know the recent rumor about a mobile home park getting converted into apartments was quite scary for some residents. And I don't know, I tend to lean to putting it back to zoning for just manufactured homes.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cleveland.
If I'm understanding this presentation correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, the moratorium is going to essentially say you can't convert current mobile home areas into something else like apartments.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I think maintaining, a variety of housing from, high-end expensive stuff down to more affordable housing is essential. And if a property owner sees that, hey, I could make more money if I get rid of the low income or affordable housing that I have and replace it with something, that just makes the problem worse. So it seems, for peace of mind for folks, I had a friend who recently was renting a place, and it wasn't a mobile home, but they got evicted because the owner decided they had some other plans for it where they could make some more money, or passing it on to someone else who had plans for it to make money. And it's pretty difficult for tenants because, again, it's really difficult to find affordable housing around here. So I like the idea of moratorium, and I don't know the specific plan for ensuring that we maintain, our mobile home parks and the property there. I think that'd be great to have in another workshop, or have our other planning commissions kind of take a look at it and consider the options. But I think taking action to protect what affordable housing we have and maintain it is going to be good.
Thank you. Councilmember Peterson.
There we go. I'm trying to wrap my mind around this. So there are neighborhoods of manufactured homes. Somebody is willing to go in and buy those homes and remove them and put up something else. There are very few open lots, correct, in town. And so, I mean, that's what we're talking about, actually removing whole communities.
It's not that they will buy, they'll stop renting the lots to the manufactured homeowners. So they'll be forced to get rid of their manufactured homes, move them somewhere else, and then they're gonna resell or redevelop the land that they're all sitting on.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't understand that piece.
Yeah.
So the land is rented.
Correct.
So, and then you have to move your home.
Correct.
Yeah.
Mike, you know, I hate to put you on the spot. What percentage of our homes, if you were to take a wild guess, are manufactured in the city? 10%?
I would say it's probably around like 14 to 15%. I mean, if you were to compare us to Walla, the gravity of manufactured housing is actually over here in College Place, which is a great thing. So yeah, I mean, we are where that's allowed to a limited degree out in the county, but there's issues there such as lack of available utilities and a lot of development code issues. So I mean, it's easiest to have these here. And I mean, to be frank, what really makes those parks pencil for developers here is that when in typical areas, like when you have a manufactured housing park, a lot of times the streets and the utilities are owned by the manufactured home park itself. And here in College Place, the roads and the utilities underneath are actually owned by the city. So that's a rare thing and it's a good thing. But yeah, we're just putting this before you because we realized this was a unintended consequence given where the regional housing market is going.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. Councilmember Nyhagen.
Estates manufactured, and it would be a terrible thing for all of us because we're all seniors here. That would be a terrible thing to do. Thank you.
Councilmember Selby.
I just have one question I think left. This would not stop multifamily building on areas that are zoned multifamily but do not have manufactured housing. Is that correct?
We can target it as such where it's toward the historic manufactured home zoning that was like switched over. So
yeah, I think for the emergency moratorium, I'm more comfortable with having it only apply to where the manufactured homes zoning was, which is where, as I understand it, which is mostly where the manufactured homes are, because we don't want that built over. But I also don't want to stop people from building multifamily homes where it's zoned for that, because I think we could use some.
This only applies to protecting the current manufactured home communities.
Yeah, that's what I just wanted to make sure of, that we didn't just put a moratorium on all the multifamily.
Yeah, gosh, no, that would really affect our affordable housing market.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guess I have one follow-up question. Mike, do you have an estimate of how long it would take for us to work through all of this? And if we do decide to change the zoning, is there a timing with our plan, or can we just change the zoning as we get to it?
So every year we actually have where people, residents, business owners could petition the city for what's called a comprehensive plan or a development code amendment. Ironically, the letters that came in actually ended up in the time frame in which we were accepting that. And Community Council, which is the regional nonprofit that did the affordable housing study, they are planning to file essentially a petition or asking the city to reinstate that manufactured home zone. And so that's in process as we would speak. If this moratorium passes the next meeting, how it would go is, if put it this way, if it mirrored the process like the temporary industrial hemp moratorium, which then became the permanent moratorium, that was introduced actually around the same time frame. And to my recollection, it made it to a planning commission meeting, I want to say for a final hearing in October, with the action by council in November and December. So if it mimicked that process, which I would think it would, that would be my estimate.
Thank you.
Councilmember Sherman?
I'm trying to understand, or I guess I'm curious to know, what are the protections in place right now that the land couldn't be sold to someone else, even if it's I guess if it remains manufactured home, but what kind of protection is there that in whatever lease agreement or rental agreement that couldn't happen right now? Or is it just because the intent could be there that someone could sell the property and then put in something else? So if it's just going to remain a manufactured home, then they couldn't say your land has been sold and you can't live here anymore. What is that process like?
Well, I mean, a couple of things. I mean, right now, as far as anyone that's like leasing land or renting land from anyone, the governor's emergency prohibition on kicking people out, that is in place right now until June 30th at the earliest. So that couldn't happen in the first place. As far as under normal market conditions, I mean, even if, let's say, hypothetically they sold it to someone else, there would be there's a couple of processes in place where it would either, to my knowledge, there's RCW. I'd have to pull out the number because it's a newer one from last year. But basically, it does give the opportunity for people that live in manufactured housing communities to have like the first right of refusal to form like what's called co-ops, where they would own the manufactured housing communities. So if anyone looks at like what the Village of Park Forest, Illinois is, for example, that's like a giant co-op. So very similar to that. That RCW at the state adopted is fairly new, as in I believe the last year. So there is opportunity to do a co-op and fund for that and get money from the state housing trust. Or if that failed, then the new owner could essentially do what they wanted. As I said, we've gotten letters from community members out there. I've not received direct intelligence that there's an immediate threat, but this is more of like a peace of mind thing. And essentially it's taken action because unfortunately the housing market is such that it just keeps heating up, and it's causing, while our zoning edits were well intentioned, unfortunately, because the market hasn't corrected in any discernible way, it can be exploited. So this would just put in that temporary moratorium while we do the evaluation, try to bring back the manufactured housing zone, and then Planning Commission would have their hearing, as would you all.
Thank you, Mike.
We're going to go back to Councilmember Cleveland.
And just a quick comment on something you mentioned, that the governor's order essentially said no evictions, but that's pretty difficult to fight, I think, at times
Yeah.
for folks. And again, I have a friend who was told, you need to move out of here, so bye. And again, being difficult and expensive to fight that kind of stuff and time consuming, I mean, they had to look for other housing options. So yeah, that's my one comment.
I don't believe the restriction applies to the ending of leases. You're not required to renew the lease. You just can't kick them out in the middle of their lease. So that's correct. Any other questions or comments? Councilmember Peterson?
Mike, you answered, I had a couple of questions written down here, but I think you answered most of them with your last response. But is there a potential, the fact that we're having this discussion, that has turned into a foot race in our community? And so I guess what I'm saying is meaning that if somebody's going to move, this discussion could actually engage that process. In other words, is it we probably need to address this sooner than later?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you're correct in that. I've not heard any intelligence from the development community or anything that there was plans in place to do anything like this. But I would say that if you did have someone in the background trying to plot stuff, when you have a discussion like this in open, you're correct. At least my belief is that it could trigger something. So what I would advise is to get this moratorium in place. I would say if you deem so fit, the next council meeting.
Yeah, I support that. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I'd be amenable to having the moratorium come up at the next council meeting.
Okay.
And I will share that I did receive from a resident of one of the manufactured home parks that it's almost like a newsletter article that one of the owners of, well, the owner of the property was advocating for being able to sell the properties and not to restrict the sale of mobile home, manufacturing home communities. So we know he's for it. So that's something that I think we need to provide protections to the senior citizens who call that place home and have, okay, there it is. There, that's the article there that Lisa's sharing, where he is supporting being able to sell for other types of development. I did see this happen in King County years back ago, and it was devastating in the affordable housing market over there. It really took away a lot of the the housing that people had, the senior citizens, those on fixed incomes, immigrant families, and the gentrification that took over in those areas. It's sad to see it now. It'll never go back to a diverse community because of that. So it is an important topic. Okay, any other, Councilmember Selby.
The mobile home parks that I'm familiar with, which are not these actually, very few of the homes were actually able to still be moved. So although technically they're just taking away the land, in all practical terms, they're taking away the land and the house. Are these pretty much that way too?
Well, if the owner can't, if they don't have a land to move it to, or they can't afford to move it, the property owner has the right to dispose of it.
Yeah, well, and a lot of them have, where I was, had they had the part cut off that actually connects to the tractor. So it's almost impossible to move them.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'll just say that typically your manufactured housing that was developed like in mid-90s and newer can be moved. Ones that are older than that, not so much. And the issue is even to move those. I mean, I was on the community council affordable housing task force and the one that put together the study, as was Mayor Hernandez. And I mean, the cost to move one of them, even if you can move it, is like $10,000 or $15,000, which most people aren't going to have sitting around. So that really makes it really, it's just bad. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. This was a great discussion. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, so Lisa, I think we have our marching orders to put it on the agenda for next council meeting, please. Okay, so we're going to move on to the peddler code, and Ms. Colwell's also going to present on that.
All right, thank you, Mayor. As we discussed at the last workshop, due to the update of the Uniform Development Code for College Place, and in conjunction with the state requiring the business license to go through their system, we kind of let the governing code for peddlers within the city go by the wayside. And it came to our attention through complaints from citizens that were getting solicitors knocking on their door, not providing information at all times of the night and day. And also from the police department when individuals came in to apply for a license. And as I understand it, the city's intent not to require a state business license to peddle. And so if we could go down, Lisa, to, I'm not sure what page it is, but the new section, new chapter. Here is kind of what Mike and I got together. He provided me with example codes. It's across the board throughout the state as to how much peddlers, solicitors, canvassers are regulated. So this is a proposal that kind of puts almost all options out there. Some cities do require canvassers to get licensed, but I don't know if that's something the city wants. So at this time, I'm happy to field questions on the new chapter. I included the revisions to the existing chapter just because those will have to be cleanup provisions if we do enact a new chapter.
All right, thank you. Let's go through council members. Council member Bobbitt.
I need to process it some more, but no questions at this time.
Well, and I think I can comment. I know Commissioner Bobbitt's last conversation is a concern for nonprofits, you know, social clubs that are raising money for not for profit, personal profit, and that is exempted out of this. So Girl Scouts that are selling cookies are not going to have to get a license or go through a background check.
I don't know. Some of them are pretty shifty and pressure selling those cookies, let me tell you. Okay, Council Member Cleveland.
I guess if I'm reading and answer correctly, in terms of canvassing, if someone wanted to be a political activist to raise awareness on an issue or to garner support for something, they'd be required to get a license under what's currently proposed.
If I remember correctly, when I drafted this, that canvassers would not need to get a license. That would include political affiliations.
Okay, I haven't fully digested the document, but some
sure,
of the
it's a lot. It's a lot.
I was thought I was reading that canvassers were included in that, but yeah, if I'd prefer to let people have, you know, freedom to talk to their neighbors, knocking on the doors and kind of stuff for political stuff. So if that's the case, then great. Certainly I can understand why there would be wanting to be some restrictions on business efforts going door to door.
And then we don't run afoul of any protected speech.
Right.
Perfect way to put it, Councilmember Cleveland. Okay, Councilmember Peterson.
So, what is the business license? How much is that? I can't remember. Is it $50?
You know, I don't know the answer to that.
Oh.
Mike might have
I
that.
do. The local business license is $20.
$20.
The city of Walla Walla charges 50. We're 20.
And also, one consideration is we do require a background check. And so we could pass that cost onto the applicant. And that's more than $20 to do that.
But maybe I'm crossing the line here, but is it onerous to require everyone to pay $20 and be profit and nonprofit? Would that be considered a restriction of free speech? And
so as it's proposed, if you're a nonprofit, you are not required to get a license.
yeah,
It's just for commercial purposes, for revenue generating sales or soliciting sales.
okay.
Yeah, and the main reason this came up is because we had certain people who were representing a local cable company. Well, I mean, they're actually a regional one that were pressuring people, and then a guy selling meat in the neighborhood that was being fairly aggressive. So
In College Place? It's
yeah,
like you didn't know.
yeah.
Yep. Okay. Councilmember Nyhagen.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Sherman. I'm sorry, Selby. Okay, I think she's stuck on mute.
No
Oh,
questions. Sorry. I was doing what it said, but it wasn't working.
Councilmember Sherman.
No questions, thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Bree. I think it's appropriate for the for-profit businesses, and nonprofit sales are considered fundraising, not for-profit business ventures. So, yep.
And when we present this for action, I will have some more information about fees and costs. I'll work with Mary Ann and the police department.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay. I'm keeping you on the spotlight. One more for the Vuska Blake fix.
I know, I don't know if I've talked to anyone this much in 12 months. It's nice. Okay, so basically what I have in this memo is the Supreme Court came down with a decision that basically held a criminal law felony personal possession of drugs, illegal drugs, unconstitutional because it did not have a knowledge requirement. And so Chief Tamaris reached out to me and Mike and asked if we wanted to enact a local ordinance that would be the fix for that. And in legal terms, a fix is when a court says this law is unconstitutional and the legislature goes back and conforms it or changes it to meet with the court's decision. There's already a proposal in Olympia to fix this, but it takes quite a bit of time to get to that point. And so what we're proposing, I guess I'm not proposing it, but it's an option for you if you want to enact this to make that a fix. It wouldn't be something that I would prosecute in district court because it's a felony, but it would be a tool that if the county prosecutor wishes to prosecute someone for violating this law, that the county prosecutor could do that. I imagine at the state level, there's going to be some pressure on the legislators to not enact a fix and to change the way we handle drug offenses in general, take that out of being a crime. My gut feeling is that will not fly, but it's happened in Oregon. Another benefit to this is I will tell you, I think it took seconds for that decision to come out, and everyone who is charged with these offenses, in custody for these offenses, sentenced in custody or on probation, they all knew immediately that this was kind of free game and we have a free pass. And so even if no cases were prosecuted under a local law, it would give the impression that we want to have a healthy community. We don't want to have drug offenders detrimental to the community. So if anyone has any questions, concerns, comments?
Actually, I'm going to quickly ask if Chief Tamaras has anything he would like to add for the council's consideration.
Yeah, Mayor, thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. So this is a huge issue, and this is not just our city taking a look at making this constitutional change so that we can continue to prosecute, arrest for simple possession. Again, the officers don't prosecute; the prosecutors prosecute. This is we have a problem with drugs in our community, and I highly encourage you to consider this. You know, right now, when someone is arrested, they go up to the prosecutor's office, and oftentimes for a simple possession, people are given a deferred prosecution. Sometimes the prosecution, there's leverage for people to attend drug rehab and try to get their lives in order. And without this leverage, that's not going to occur. I also want the council to understand that this is not a victimless crime. These individuals are robbing your homes and stealing things to feed their drug addiction. So it goes beyond just someone getting high in their house on the weekend. So this is a bigger issue for our community across the state and frankly across our country. So we're not the only ones. City of Walla Walla, the county of Walla Walla is also looking at making changes to their local laws. This is happening across the state of Washington. And I think it's a good thing for our community.
And this would also get drugs off the street as well. Because right now, seizing a drug when there's not any criminal activity involved, we can't get a warrant to go in the house or a car or a backpack, that type of thing. So it literally will allow drugs to get off the street.
Great, thank you both. Let's go through council members for questions or comments. And we'll start with Councilmember Bobbitt once again.
This is something I'm going to sit down and study a little more during the next week. I'm for it. I'm for getting drugs off the street. And basically, I just want to know that I understand this correctly, Reed. If a person is I think the example was there, a stolen car or something, then a little baggie of drugs was found. And this is allowing you to prosecute for that drug possession.
That's correct.
Though it's totally separate from the initial crime that they were caught for. Okay.
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. So I do have a correct understanding there. Thank you.
Yep. And I will let you guys know, as Chief Tamaras said, I would say 95% of people who are charged with this either have a deferred prosecution and treatment, which means that it doesn't end in a conviction, or they go through a formal drug court program. And that's just gone now.
Councilmember Cleveland.
Still kind of digesting it here. I guess if I'm understanding correctly, I tried skimming the document and looking over it. The Supreme Court, their decision was essentially saying that if someone is found to have drugs on them, we have to prove that it's theirs. And they could say it's not mine. And that's essentially what's creating this problem.
That's correct. And in the past, the Supreme Court has said with similar type of issues, they've read in a knowledge element or a mens rea element. So they could have said, hey, as it's written and based on common sense and the Constitution and our laws, the state has to prove knowledge and away we go. They chose instead to just say the entire law is unconstitutional. Go back and fix it. And if you want to have a discussion about what I think that message sends, I'd be happy to do that one-on-one. But I do. I think it was a clear shot across the bow for decriminalization, but that's another point.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
Well,
basically, it's us fixing more quickly than Olympia can.
okay.
Mhm.
I definitely want to keep drugs off the streets and out of people's hands as much as possible, and get them into a position where they can overcome their habit.
Councilmember Peterson?
No questions. I support having this put before the council.
Councilmember Nyhagen?
No questions, thank you.
Councilmember Selby?
So this was the federal Supreme Court, I thought, right?
No, it's the state Supreme Court.
Oh, it's the state. Okay. Obviously, just reading the headlines is not that good in news. Okay, that makes more sense now.
And it will not go up to a federal court. It's a state issue.
I thought I heard about it happening at the federal, but I must have hallucinated that. So, okay, it makes a lot more sense now. I was like, are we really gonna fix Congress? But yeah. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Councilmember Sherman?
Thank you. So if I'm looking at it, what you're proposing, or the way that you've written what we could do in the city of College Place, so you're not proposing it, but something that we would discuss. It's still, is that this part that says it's unlawful for any person to knowingly possess?
That's correct.
So
we just put in knowingly.
Who determines what they know?
A jury.
Okay, so they just have to be able to prove that they either did or didn't.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Good question.
All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. I think we're complete with that, done with that discussion. Thank you, Rhea and Chief Tamaras. We appreciate the information.
Absolutely.
And so now we're towards the end of our agenda. Are there any other items or business to the good of the order? All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn this meeting.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second, Councilmember Selby.
All right. So if there's no objection, the meeting is adjourned at 7:03 p.m.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.